afternoon we're going to be looking at a bit of bike maintenance. Now in particular we're going to look at an M check, and that's a system of checking our bike that allows us to remember. So the M being this, that we're going to go from here, like that, and if you look at that again, that's an M, ready? And that's the way we're going to check our bike. That allows us not to miss anything. Now why would we do a bike check? Partly to keep the bike nice and safe, which keeps you safe. At the end of the day, if your bike has a bike failure whilst you're out riding, then that's going to cause you an issue, but also it's going to cost you a lot of money if you don't look after the bike. So some simple checks will allow you to look after the bike, keep it safe, keep you safe. So let's start at the back. We're going to start back here at the rear derailleur. So this bit's the derailleur, sometimes you can't, and technical terms don't necessarily matter. You know this bit is where the chain goes round, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the derailleur and I'm going to give it a little wobble, and I'm just going to make sure that it is nice and fixed firm on the bike. I'm then going to look at the rear cassette, and this is the cassette, and I'm just going to check that that has got the right movement. It's running lovely there. I can actually grab it and I can actually tip it side to side, and I can see that's nice and firm. There's no loose movement in it. Now what do we do if we find something wrong with the bike? Well, we'll come to that bit a little bit later on. Right now we're just going to check if we can find a fault at all with the bike. So rear derailleur looks good. I'm also going to have a quick look at that cable, and then I'm going to go on to the wheel. Now simply I'm going to do is grab the spokes like so, and I'm going to give them a little pinch. Now they should be firm and there shouldn't be any loose spokes, and I work my way around like so and check that side. Then I can spin the bike around, have a little look on this side. Again, just squeezing those spokes and making sure that they're all nice and firm as they are. Then I'm going to go on to, now it doesn't quite matter if you miss something, you can go back to it, but remembering we're looking at that M, we're working on this area first. I can grab the tyre, give it a little pinch and check that I've got a nice bit of air in my tyre. Pump if you need to, put a little bit of air in. If you're really technical, you can get a little gauge that tells you what pressure that you run. Looking also for tread. I don't want any bald or warm patches. We all like to skid, but not necessarily skills. It's not really a skill skidding. At the end of the day we do it, but we tend to wear our tyres out, and this is what gives us the grip whilst we're on the trails or on the tracks or even on the road. I'm going to just spin the bike round a minute so you can see. I'm also looking at this disc here. This is really important. I'm not going to grab the disc because I don't want to contaminate it, but I'm going to just grab the disc and make sure it's nice and firm in there and it's not loose at all. Now on this bike, being a full suspension, we also got these to be concerned about, and these are our little pivot bearings. It's as I push the bike down, you can see the bike moving. I want to make sure all of these are snug. So I pop my Allen key in and just check them as we go. If I spin around again, I'm also going to check the brake there. So if I squeeze my brake, I just want to make sure this is not loose. There's two bolts there and I'll make sure that's not loose. So I can squeeze the brake, just give it a wobble, or I can actually grab it and give it a little pull and just make sure it's nice and solid. So from there, we may as well do it because we're in this place. I'm looking at the chain. So I'm just going to make sure that runs nice and smooth. I'm also going to feel my chain. My chain's really dry, so if anything on this bike, what I could do with is a little bit of oil on my chain, which I've got some over there, which I'll do in a minute. Brings us to the chain. So from here, we're going to come up and we're going to look at our seat, making sure our seat's in a nice position, it's nice and firm and not loose. Now I've got a dropper post, so that allows me to push down and check it, and it comes up on its own. But I'm just making sure that's nice and solid, and the clamp here is also solid. As I'm looking, I'm not ignoring the frame. I'm also looking for any dents, cracks, etc. that could be in the frame. So I'm checking the frame as I go along. So working our way, now some of you are going to have a full suspension, so you're going to have this rear shock, and some of you obviously are going to have a hardtail. This bit would be missing, but I'm going to give this a quick little check. Now I don't really want to spin this because it changes the suspension, but what I want to do is maybe press down, making sure it's running smoothly, etc. So I've come to this area, I'm happy with that. So I've gone from there to here. Now I'm going to work my way to here. Got to get my M right. So working up here at our cockpit. Now I'm looking for, let's check on brakes first. I'm going to press my front brake, my back brake, making sure they're nice and solid. Not the best surface to test it on, a nice firm surface would be better, but I can see that both brakes are working. I personally, as I go around, would use an Allen key and check that they are all nice and solid. I wouldn't, and you can over time by the way, so be a little cautious and a bit careful. Now I want to do something that's really important to me when I ride my bike, and I want to check my headset, and that's this bit up here. I want to check that all this is nice and firm. Now we might get caught out in the rain in a minute. It's starting to rain, we may need to move. Okay, so we've had to change location due to the rain, which sometimes happens. Hasn't happened for the last 2 weeks, but it has now. So we're at the cockpit. I was about to talk about the headset, which is really important to me because it's one of the things on one of my bikes always comes loose. But a couple of ways of checking. What I like to do is I like to turn the bike, grab the front brake. That's my right brake, and I've just put my hand around the top of the headset and I just give it a little wobble. Now of course I've got suspension, so there will be some movement, but what I'm looking for is that my headset here isn't moving. If it is, it means I need to tighten this area. I'd loosen the clamps that hold the handlebars on and then just tighten this to bring that closer together. But yeah, that's an important check. There is another way. You can literally just grab your front brake, keep the wheel going forward, and again do the same thing. I just find it more positive like that, so that's why I do it that way. So we got to the handlebars, we check the brakes. Really important, we check our grips, making sure they're on, nice and firm. Depends on if you've got slide on ones or you've got clamp ones, which you do up with a little Allen key. And really important is make sure you've got some ends. If you've got a bare handlebar end and you were to come off the bike, of course this bit here is quite sharp, and if that went into you, hence why we like to have a little bit of rubber on the end of that, or a cap depending on what you've got. So coming on to the forks, I want to check that they're working nicely. Again, I'm looking down these stanchions here and I'm making sure there's no damage to these, because this is what runs past the seals and keeps everything working nicely. So a little push down, check they're working nicely, and I'm happy with that, so that's good. We did the back wheel, so we'll do the front wheel as well, and again we're just going to grab the spokes and just check that they are all nice and firm. Don't want any loose ones. Now if you have got a loose spoke, you do want to tighten it up. You have to also be careful because you can untrue the wheel. That means make it wobble left to right, so you have to be careful with that. But if they're loose, just nip them tight. It's worth doing. And I can also pick up the bike, just run the tyre, run the wheel, and check that I've got no massive buckle. Check the pressure, just a little press down, and so far I'm happy. Now we've gone from there to here. Did we forget coming down here? I think, did we bypass something? I think we might have done, because we went, I have to let careful with my yums here, but so we've missed this bit. So we'll go back a little bit, and again it doesn't matter if you do the same. You go back through that M in your head, and that allows you to remember. Now I want to check that my bottom bracket, that's the bit in the bike here, has got bearings in, allows it to run smoothly. I want to make sure that that's okay. So I'm going to grab each crank arm, and I'm just going to give it a wobble left to right. Now again, I've got suspension, so there is going to be some movement, but if it's loose, it's going to be very obvious, and you'll find it moving about. And if it does, then you'll have to have that tightened up. Let's not forget our pedals. Again, give them a little wobble, make sure they spin smoothly on both sides, and I'm just going to run my chain and make sure that's all running smooth as well. So we went from derailleur, rear cassette, we did the back wheel, we did check the disc, we checked the brake caliper, we've come up the bike, we've checked the seat area, we've come back down, we've checked the crank area, the pedals, crank arms, suspension if you've got it. We've moved our way back up to the handlebars, our cockpit we like to call it, and we'll check the brakes, our grips, our bar ends, our headset. We've worked our way down through our forks and down to the wheel again. Didn't check the disc, so I'll do that now. And again, see that process, as I went through it, it's reminded me of things that I might have missed. So I'm just going to give that a little bit. Again, I'm not going to pinch it because I don't want to contaminate it, but I'm going to give it a little wobble and also check the brake caliper there. Now one really important thing, I'll just spin that round, the camera can still see, and that's a quick release. A lot of people don't check them, but it's where a lot of bike failures happen. So to do that, it's got a little clamp, and as I push that up, it clamps and pulls the forks together at the bottom, locating onto the wheel and making sure it's nice and secure. What a lot of people think they need to do is just tighten it up, and then they leave it like that. And that doesn't work. You must get it to the point where it's just nearly tight. Well, I can go a little snug, then I can push it back a little bit. Then as I lift it up, I can feel it clamping together, and there we go, that's holding the wheel securely in. Check that regularly, and if you've got one on the back, also check that as well. I've got a rear axle, which is just an Allen key. Now, one thing I didn't say at the beginning, which I think again is a really good place to start. Now, it won't work on this surface, but it would work on a tarmac or concrete or driveway or something like that. And that is, I like to pick my bike up and I just drop it from about there. And what I'm looking for, if you notice, if I do that again and listen, there's hardly any noise. And I know we've got a soft surface, but that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for big clunks, etc. So I think we've gone for our M. So again, that's our M that we're looking for. Now, just a couple of little things. If I move around to make sure the camera can see, I'm just going to pop my bike there a minute. I'm even going to ask the cameraman in a minute if I've missed anything. So if I go over to these, again, for you guys, this is really important. Our trusty tools. So these are little Allen keys. Now, we spend a lot of money on our tools and we want them to last a long time, but because we like them, we tend to hold on to them for too long, unless they're good quality. Now, what happens is you can wear these, so they're not as positive as they may have been when you first brought them. Now, if I place that onto my bike and start doing up all the screws, etc., if this is worn, you will wear everything on the bike. Now, that could be a very costly and expensive exercise if you don't look after your tools. So if you find your tools are worn, get rid of them in a responsible manner. Invest in some really good ones if you can, but just make sure you check them before you use them. That's really important. And we did say this is just a dry oil, well, not in the rain, it might be more suitable for wet oil, but this dry oil, making sure I've got some lubrication on my chain, because otherwise I'll wear all of this. We call this the drive train, and I can wear all of this if I don't use lubrication on a regular basis. So again, making sure we lube the bike is really important. Some people think these aren't cool. Now, I ride a lot, and I tell you, this is one of the most important things, and all the guys I ride with have a helmet on. I think it's one of the most important things. If you've seen people come off a bike, you look cool if you've got a helmet on. You don't look cool if you've not got one on. So I know some of you think, oh yeah, but I don't want to wear one. But it's really, really important you wear one of these when you're riding your bike anywhere. So last thing, remember your M checks. Keep the bike safe, keep yourself safe. Thank you very much.